Hey, it's Keen Souls here, and in today's video we'll be doing a guide for uSNKRS. I'm just going to show you a complete guide of the bot from top to bottom. I cleared out all of my information so that way I can show you, basically a setup, so to speak, a fresh setup for the bot. That way you can see all the features and how to add information and how to do your setup, things like that. A couple of you guys have requested it, so I thought I should make a video on it and just go over it in as much detail as I possibly can. So getting started here, right here is the main homepage of uSNKRS. The interface actually changed recently. They're going to be coming out with a 2.0 update, and apparently they changed the UI to resemble that. There's going to be a lot more features in 2.0, but right now I'm on 1.3.6. But uTools does plan on coming out with 2.0 sometime soon, and we'll see what that looks like. But as you can see here, the interface is a lot different than how it was just a few weeks ago, a week or two ago. Here's going to show you all your statistics. Pretty much straightforward. Up here you have your login statistics, how many successful logins, failed logins. This is for your Nike accounts. Down here you have your COP statistics, how many draw wins, draw losses you have. And then you have random statistics, successful entries, task failed, task launched. This space right here will show a pie chart showing that statistics. So I think it shows wins in blue and losses in red, and it'll be in the form of a pie chart on this space right here. Over here on the right hand side you have successful purchases, so any recent purchases you have will show up here on the right hand side. As you can see here, my last one was Jordan 9 Changed the World on this instance. And then up here you have daily statistics that you can load. Also, if you like to contact the owner, you can contact them here or in the Discord group or uTools on Twitter. At the top right hand corner is a clock. It is in military time. It's almost midnight where I'm at right now, so 2300. Up here you have your notifications. You can click that and it'll basically show you like any recent cops you have. It'll come up here in the form of notification. Mark is red, clear notifications. Pretty much straightforward, self-explanatory. And then you can just go ahead and close that out. Moving along, here is the calendar screen. So on here you'll see all future releases for sneakers for Nike. You can change your region. I'm United States, so I have United States selected as default. On the calendar you can see a bunch of different information. Shoe name, obviously, the price in the country you're in, style code, and what kind of release it is. A Dan, which is basically a draw. Looks like Nike has changed most of the releases now to be a draw. So it'll show you that here, 10 minutes. And also it'll show you available sizes, high, medium, or low. I wouldn't rely too much on this. This does change on the back end of Nike. Sometimes it'll show high, then on drop day it's really not that many pairs. So I wouldn't rely too much on that. And then also here you can search a specific style code or add one to the calendar. Over here on the left hand side you can use a proxy to generate the calendar. That's if your local IP address is blocked or has any issues, or if you're on a server, you can just plug in a proxy here and generate the calendar using that specific proxy. Also here, the plus sign, you can create your task straight from the calendar for that product. I personally do this whenever I'm creating tasks, is I like to come up here at the top right hand corner, hit the plus sign and create the task. But pretty much straightforward. All future releases on here. You can see the name, kind of product it is, and that's pretty much it. Moving along is your task creation screen. So this right now is blank. Obviously I have no tasks. If you're familiar with other bots, some of these buttons may look familiar with you. You can search tasks, stop all tasks, restart failed tasks, change proxies, mass change them, mass change sizes, mass change URL. So let's just go ahead and just say we want to create a task, right? So we'll go up here and create a task. And if you're not familiar with tasks, or that term, basically each task is one Nike account going for the product. So one task is one Nike account going for whatever product you're going for. So just think of that task as one browser, because this bot is browser based. So each task will open up a browser, and that browser will be going for the product. It'll load up Nike.com in Google Chrome, and then it'll wait for the release time and then submit the entry or try to check out for whatever product it may be. So here, country, self-explanatory. You want to use the country you're in. United States for me. Entry type, preload recommended. That is default. I always use that. Don't really change that. There's preload like refresh, which will refresh the browser. 3DS, believe that's for overseas for the UK. Nike.com, safe mode, manual mode, and then preload for fill territories or fill releases. But I just leave this default, preload recommended. Don't really need to change that. Product, here you can select the product that you want to use. Usually it'll load the calendar. I'm not sure why it's not loading it here. One of the main reasons why I create my tasks from the calendar anyways, but usually you can find it here. I think maybe if I do random adult, it might load it. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why. Usually it'll show a drop down of all of the products here that are on the calendar or that are loaded up for Nike. And then you can just select the product. Actually, let's do this. Let's go back. Let's go back to the calendar. And let's create a task for this shoe, for the Nike Huarache. So as you can see, it filled out the product right here. And this is how it should look. Not sure if I did something wrong, but yeah, this is how it should look for the drop-down list for the products. All of the products that are on Nike. Select whatever shoe you want to go for. Let's say Jordan 13s. Profiles. I'll explain that later on, but profiles are basically, your Nike account, and that Nike account is attached to a profile. So that profile will be one task. Now, if you have multiple accounts on here, I do have this refreshed and I cleared out all my accounts for the sake of this video. But say you had 20 accounts, 20 profiles, you would click use already profiles and it'll just create a task for each one. Size you can do random or you can select a specific size. I am doing preschooling, so for this product, so it's going to show preschooling sizes for that. I usually do random, or if I get stock numbers from my cook group, I'll probably go for the size that has the most amount of inventory. But recently, with the Jordan 5s and the Hyper Royals, it looks like a lot of the stock numbers that came out weren't completely accurate. So I think doing random is pretty much on the safe side as far as going for a size. Proxies, if you have proxies loaded, which I do right now for this copy, Leaf proxies, I use the ISP plan. You can go ahead and select those proxies. And you want to have, you want to do a one-to-one. Basically, you want to have one proxy per account per profile. So if you have 20 accounts, 20 profiles, you want to have 20 proxies. So whenever you do, purchase proxies, you want to keep that in mind. Have one-to-one as far as that ratio. So I have Leaf 20. I used to run 20 accounts, so it would be 20 in that. Reuse proxies, you want to select no. The only reason really to use this is if you're going for multiple products on the same day, then, technically you can use that same proxy and go for two products on the same proxy. Nike won't really filter you for that. It's perfectly fine. It's no different than you, being on Wi-Fi on your phone and going for two shoes that drop on the same day. That's understandable. Nike's not going to filter you out for that. Login time. This is basically the login time for the specific task or for your task whenever you create them. This will be what time the task opens up the Chrome browser and logs into the account. I leave this blank because I start my task one by one. So I recommend you doing this as well. That way you can start your task one by one and not start them all at once or, encounter any issues. For me, it works best just to do it one by one. Entry start time will be what time the task will submit the order or submit the entry for the product. On Dan releases, it doesn't really matter. You get usually 10 minutes. So as long as you have it entered within that 10 minutes. You probably want to do it earlier just because the longer time goes on, especially for a hype product, Nike servers might get bombarded and it might be harder for you to have that task enter. So I usually do like within the first 10 seconds. I do 7 seconds just to be safe. For Leo releases, you do want to do it early. Same thing within the first 10 seconds. All of these settings on the side, on the right side, I leave default. Don't touch any of those. It's recommended you don't. Now, if you have a computer that might not be CPU strong or memory, RAM strong, maybe you can select load images as no. That way, the browser is not using too much resources from your computer. And then you would just do this and you would go ahead and create task. Didn't select a size. Let's do random. Don't have a profile, so I might not be able to do it. Yeah, I won't be able to do it. I'll show that in a little bit after I create the profile, but that's essentially how you create a task, and it'll show up here. I'll come back to this later. Proxies, as explained, this is where you add your proxies. I don't have any proxies that I can publicly show right now, but basically you would come to the top, hit add proxies, and you add the proxy here on the left-hand side. It'll be in the form of, if it's user authenticated, it's usually the IP address, then the username, the login info. If it's IP authenticated, then it'll be the IP address and so forth. Or if it's a residential, it'll be completely different. But you just hit add proxies, copy and paste it here on the left-hand side. Then it'll give you an option to check the proxies. And what it does with that, it'll open up a Chrome browser and it'll actually check the speed and make sure the proxy is valid. Now, whenever you do check the proxy speed, keep in mind that the times are going to be a lot higher compared to using a proxy checker, because when you use a proxy checker, it's really just checking the request to the site, and it's very quick. So you may have some ISPs or some DCs that might have, times of like 200 milliseconds, but you check it on uSNKRS and it might be 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000. uSNKRS is actually loading the entire Nike website and waiting for the page to completely load and then going off of that time. So it's okay if you see it at 4,000 or 5,000, as long as your proxy doesn't fail, then you have a solid proxy. You can actually also save without checking. If you already know your proxies are valid or good, you can just skip that and save it. That option will be here on the right-hand side, but it's pretty much self-explanatory. If you want to check your proxies, you just click check, and it'll check each one, basically going down the list one by one. And then you can delete all your proxies, and then you can also test unvalidated proxies you haven't tested already. Nike accounts. So whenever running uSNKRS, you obviously need a Nike account. That's needed to purchase anything on Nike with sneakers. The account is needed. So whether you get that from account provider or you made your own or you have a generator, whatever it may be, you would add that account onto uSNKRS here. And all you have to do is come up to add accounts, and then you will plug in the information for the account. And the format that you should plug it in is, let's say, johndoe@gmail.com. How you separate the username or the email and the password is with this slash right here. And then let's say the password is test123. So as soon as you put that in, you can come over here on the right-hand side and click check Nike account. What that's going to do is going to take you to another screen where you plug in your proxies, and you'll use a proxy to check that account. It's recommended you do that. Obviously, you don't want to check 10, 20 accounts from your local IP address. If you have multiple accounts, obviously you just fill them all in. You obviously don't need to do it one by typing it. You can just copy and paste however you have that account from your provider and just paste it in here. Most providers will give it in a form of semicolon, so you just have to come in there and change each one with that slash, and then go ahead and click check Nike accounts. And what it'll do is it'll log into the account, make sure it log in successfully, and then it'll consider that account as valid or validated. And then it'll just go, same thing with the proxies, one by one down a list until all of them are validated. Now you make encounter errors when doing it. That doesn't mean the account, might have been clipped. Could just be a browser issue or a proxy issue. You might just want to restart that task or restart that checking and just try it again. You can also save without checking, kind of like the proxies. If you already know the account is valid, reset will just clear the list basically like that. And that's that. Pretty much straightforward. Same thing with the proxies. You can test unvalidated accounts. You can delete all of them right here. Now, whenever you add any of this information, whether it's proxies or accounts, it's saved. So you don't have to re-add it every time you open up the bot. It just saves within the bot. So over here is draw profiles. Basically, think of a draw profile as a profile, your Nike account, and the profile it's attached to. It'll basically show you the account here, and then the CVV for the profile that it's linked to, and if there's a preferred sizing for it, and it'll show you right here. So basically, a draw profile is just a profile and an account linked together, and it'll show you what account is linked to what profile here. Now you can link them via CVV. You can bulk link. I never use any of these options. You can add profile lists, delete all profile lists, or you can unlink the accounts. If for whatever reason you want to unlink them and maybe link another profile to the accounts, you can just come here and do that. This will make more sense when I go to the next screen and you'll see what I'm talking about. The next tab is Nike Filler. So think of this as each account needs a profile. When I say a profile contains your name, billing information, shipping information, phone number, things like that. That's a profile. Each account needs a profile attached to it. So when I say attached to it, if you're familiar with Nike and sneakers, if you go on your personal sneakers account and you go to your profile information, you'll see that your address, your phone number, your name is saved. That's your profile basically. So when you create a profile here, you want to link that profile information to a specific Nike account. And that account will forever have your information unless you change it or override it or whatever it may be. That just makes it a lot quicker when it comes to creating your tasks and submitting info. It doesn't have to re-enter all of that information. It'll just be preloaded. So what I do is I use AYCD to create my profiles, and then I just load it into here using the import AYCD profiles. But you can create it manually. With uSNKRS, another thing is you don't need a lot of accounts, to hit. It's more about quality over quantity. So, you can have 10 accounts and hit. I've had like 5 or 7. You can see in my past videos and get checkouts. But so it's totally fine to do it one by one manually. So what you would do is you would come up here and hit add profile. And one thing I should tell you guys before going on is with Nike, you want to jig your profiles. When I say jig, basically each profile needs to be separate. Nike won't allow you to have the same profile enter for the same shoe and check out. They're just going to filter that out because, as you know, it's limit one shoe, one product per household. So when I say jig, you want to change the information for your billing information. That way it looks like another person or another entry. Now, the only way to do this is with a virtual credit card. Here in the States, in America, there's Privacy, and then Capital One has a virtual credit card service called Eno, which you tie to your Chrome browser, and it's an extension. You can use that as well. And basically, the virtual credit card will allow you to use any information to check out. Now, as you know, with a regular bank card, let's say you have a Bank of America credit card, if you put in John Doe and your name is really, Sally Mae, for example, it's not going to let that transaction go through and it'll decline it. So that's why a virtual credit card is needed. That way you can jig your profile and put anything for the name, phone number, address, and it still go through. So that is crucial to get. I suggest you sign up for Privacy. I'll probably have a link in the description. And then you create 10 or 12 profiles for free, and then it's $10 a month to do 36 cards per month. And that's 36 per month on top of what you have. So it just keeps stacking and keeps stacking. That way you can just add up profiles. It's pretty good service. I like it. It does have a cap. I want to say a daily cap is like $1,200, something like that. But you can sign up for a business account, which is a little hard to get, and up that cap. But for the information here, you just want to fill it out. Let's say John, last name Doe. Address, let's say it's 123 Main Street. And let's say, for the sake of the video, let's say you live in an apartment, right? You could just say unit 2. City, let's say, it's just main city. Zip code, obviously you want to put something in. Let's just make something up, right? Phone number. Now, this phone number does not need to be the phone number that's used to create the account. Whenever you make a sneakers account, it needs to be validated with a phone number. That does not have to match with the phone number on the profile. It can be completely different. But when you do create your profiles and you change the information, you jig each one separately and differently, you want to change that phone number. So you could just make something up, let's see. I think that's enough digits. And over here, you'll see a profile score. This is basically just telling you how unique this profile is. So obviously, if it's completely unique, nothing matches another profile, you get a score of 100. And then that score just varies based on the uniqueness of it. As you can see, I didn't finish, so it's going to be 84. But if, let's say, something else matches, it'll adjust that number accordingly. Profile name, you can name it something. You can name it Profile 1. State, you select your state. Let's just say Connecticut. Country, United States. And card number. This is where you would get your card number from Privacy or whatever virtual credit card you're using. You would plug that card in, and it'll be a different card for each one. It's crucial that it's that way. And having a virtual credit card, it will be different. And then you'll plug that information in, and it'll tell you what score you have. You'll have 100 if it's completely unique. Now, when you go and make the second profile, you want to make sure that you're using another second card, or another new card, I should say, and then you want to change the information. Now, this is where it gets tricky. It is different, and it varies from region to region. Jigging in the UK is different than jigging in the United States. Before I was getting away with the 3-letter trick, and when I say that, it was like this. Basically, you could put 3 random letters at the front, or separating the street name from the street number, and then 3 letters at the back. I was doing that before, had no issues. I was successfully, consistently hitting on drops. But it looks like Nike clipped that, and that no longer works. So now the best method, I would say, whenever jigging profiles, is just to misspell it. So let's say Main Street, add another N in there, or street. You can spell street a few different ways. Street like that. You can spell street like this. You can just be creative with it. You don't want to change your street number. You can do something like add A at the end. That's fine. Nike, for the most part, shouldn't detect that. You just don't want to put random characters like this. Nike will detect that that's not valid and will filter you out. So you just want to misspell your street. Now you may be concerned, oh, how will your postal service deliver the packages? Personally, I've never had an issue doing it. But if you feel like your postal service may be a little bit more strict, what you can do when you jig your name is just misspell your name as well. So let's say your actual name is John Doe, add another N, or throw a random character in there. So if it does get held up by FedEx, UPS, whoever it may be at the fulfillment center, it's easier to go there and say, hey, I misspelled my name. Show your ID, and it'll be valid, because this is obviously not a real name. They know no one else is going to have that name. Show your ID, show your address, whatever it is, pick up the package. So you can do it that way. Personally, I was using completely random names. I've had no issue. I've done some crazy jigs, and my packages always got delivered by UPS or FedEx. No issue on my end. Address line 2, you also want to jig as well. That one you can, do the same. You can do unit 2A, or instead of saying unit, you can say door, or resident, apartment number, suite number, things like that. Now, if you live in a house, address line 2, you can make that up. Let's say you live in a house, you can do floor 1. That's completely fine. They'll still see your house and be able to deliver the package. That way you are jigging some way. You can just change that up, floor 1A, floor 1B, things like that. You just want to get creative and just have different variation with each profile. And then you just hit add profile and add that profile here. It'll show up here on the left-hand side. It will be a picture of a credit card, and it'll show that profile. Now, a filler task. Best way to explain that is it's a task that's going to fill your profile information on the Nike account. So basically, you're taking that profile you made and attaching it to a Nike account. That way they sync up. When you create that filler task, it's going to log in to that Nike account, and it's going to take the profile that you just matched with that Nike account and fill it in. So what it's going to do, it's the flow of it is log in, go to add address on the profile. It will add the address that you made on that profile to that Nike account. Add it. If there's another address on the account for some reason, it will delete it first, then add this one. Then it'll go to adding the payment information, credit card information, CVV, things like that, expiration date, and it'll add that on it, and that's the filler task. To do that, you go up to create filler task. On the left-hand side here, you'll select the Nike account that you have. Select the profile that you want to attach to that specific Nike account. Remember, you want to do one-to-one. You don't want to attach multiple profiles to the same account. Each one should have its own profile. Then you will use the proxy. Let's say you have a proxy list. You use that. Reuse, you want no. You don't want to log into more than one account on the same IP address, same proxy. And then you click create filler task. You want to keep doing that one by one until you have a filler task for each account, Nike account, and tied to each profile. When you close out of this, it'll show that specific Nike account in the profile. There'll be a play button which will initiate the filler task. You hit that play button, it'll open up a Chrome browser and fill in that profile information on that Nike account. Now, if you have like 20, and let's say your computer's not that beefy, you want to do maybe 3 at a time, 5 at a time tops. I have 16 gigs of RAM, so I do 5 at a time. I don't do any more than that, or I'll start using up too much RAM on my computer. So I think that's the best way to describe it. A filler task is filling the Nike account with profile information. You don't really need to worry about too much of the stuff up here unless you're using AYCD. Stop all filler tasks. If there's an issue going on, you can stop it. Delete all filler tasks. You can delete them. Now, when you do a filler task, you only have to do that once, unless you're going to redo your profiles for some reason, or you're adding a new Nike account. But once you do a filler task, that's that. It'll forever have that linked unless you unlink it. So it'll forever link that profile to that Nike account. And that goes back to what I was talking about with draw profiles. You'll see that Nike account with that card CVV. It'll be linked here, and you'll see that in your draw profiles. That's the best way I can describe it. I know a lot of people get confused on that, but just think of a filler task as every Nike account needs profile information. You're adding that on this screen. You only do this whenever you add new Nike accounts or you change your profile information, and you have to go ahead and create a new filler task to add that new profile information. That's pretty much it. Settings is, I can't really go on that. It'll show some important information. It's kind of self-explanatory. You can export your settings, check your expiration date for your renewal, things like that. Notification settings, Discord webhooks, stuff like that. But that's pretty much it. Any tips that I have is really, it comes down to your profiles. Of course, having good Nike accounts is good as well. I personally use Astro accounts. They generate human activity on the accounts to make it more human-like. I'll leave a link down in the description for that. But it's really going to come down to mostly how you do your profiles. If you don't jig your profiles good enough, or, not quality, then you're going to get filtered out. When I say filtered out, I mean Nike's going to see it, their algorithm, their system, whatever it may be, and just not make that entry valid. You won't know you filtered out. There's no way for you to know you filtered out other than you just not getting the shoe or the product. And that's very hard to tell, because sometimes you may think, oh, maybe it was limited, luck of the draw, because luck does play into it, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like a lottery system. But you won't know unless, you go a couple drops and you're like, hey, I'm not hitting anything. Then you want to probably rejig your profiles and keep testing. You can even go for maybe less hype drops just to see if you get filtered out. But there's a theory that, more hype drops, Nike filters more. It's hard to tell. Nike is a $1 billion company, so you do want to make sure you're on the A game, but it's hard to tell what they filter based on. Best bet, they do recommend in the uSNKRS Discord, is to have multiple addresses. Now, if you have a friend's address, family, friend, whatever it may be, you can use their address when making profiles. That's probably an even better way, safer way as well, and just use that. If you know 10 people, that's 10 addresses. A lot of people don't have that, so you just have to get creative and jig your profile information. That's the best bet I can give. Now, since this is browser-based, just refer back to my other live cop videos. You'll see how it works, but basically you'll just open up a browser for each task. What I personally do for each browser is click them one by one on drop time just to make sure they submit successfully. Just kind of babysit them. That's really much it for tips. If your computer has less than 16 gigs of RAM, I do recommend looking into a server. Google server does have $300 in free credits. It's pretty solid. CPU cores is a little bit on the lower end. Amazon is more smoother and it's a lot more powerful, but it is expensive, or it can get expensive. Google servers is kind of, cost efficient, cost friendly. I do recommend using that if your computer's not beefy enough, or if your internet speed is very slow, then I would recommend a server as well. So you can utilize another virtual machine basically to do your task. But that's pretty much it. Can't think of anything else I might have missed. That's all of really the tabs. uSNKRS is pretty much straightforward. You don't need to have hundreds of accounts. You can just 10, 15, 20, whatever it may be. Of course, more the better. Because at the end of the day, it is a lottery for some of these products. Some of these pairs might have 10,000 pairs, and there may be 400,000 people going for a hype drop. So you just want to make sure that your chances are a lot better than other people, just by making sure your profiles are good and you're doing everything you can on your end. But that's pretty much it. If there's anything I didn't cover, any questions you have with this video, leave it in the comments. Please like, please subscribe, and look out for my next video.